Welcome to the GritIron Show with Whitney Breaux, a weekly podcast where we celebrate the perseverance, passion, and lifestyle of women on and off the field. The GritIron Show with Whitney Breaux is a part of the CJC Media Network.
That's me. That's my future. 16-1. I went 2-2 today, but the Illini win outright.
Welcome back to the GritIron Show with Whitney Breaux. Bro, I am your host alongside my favorite gal, Abby Alonzo.
Hello.
And we are here for episode number 2, and we are super excited about our next guest. She's lighting up the sports betting world, and she's actually right down I-10 westbound based out of Lafayette. Welcome to the GritIron Show, Megan Makin Money. Hey, Megan, how are ya?
I am wonderful. I'm so excited to be on the GritIron Show. Y'all are so awesome, and I'm so excited to be a part of something highlighting women in sports on and off the field.
Well, we are so grateful that you said yes to joining us here today. And yesterday was Selection Sunday, which is a huge day, obviously, in basketball and in college basketball. And with all of the moves and things that are happening with sports betting opening up around the country, we really wanted to dive in with someone who's an expert in this space. And you were the number one person on our list to call to get into it. So first question I had for you coming right out of the gate. I mean, how did you get into sports betting? Like, what drew you to it, and how did you end up at FanDuel?
Okay, so I will preface this with saying that I personally do not believe that I am a betting expert yet, but I would like to think that I have a leg up on some people. And how I got into it, well, I had been a stay-at-home mom. At the time, it was around 4.5 years, and I'd just been listening to kind of, sports radio or having ESPN on in the background. My husband loved sports gambling, still loves sports gambling. So I'd listen to, like VSiN from, Las Vegas, which is a sports betting network. And, he was getting really good at it. And so, of course, being a gritty girl, a competitor, I wanted to learn how to do it, and I felt like I'm learning all of this stuff. I know all this sports information about whether it's NFL or college football, whatever you have it. I want to capitalize on it. So my husband taught me how to read lines, and taught me, the basis of sports betting, and I did that for about 2 years, just kind of playing with it on and off, and I was getting pretty good. And then it was 2 years ago, I believe now. I mean, this last year's been a blur, so I don't know whether it's 2 years, 2 years. It was the Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl year. It was the Niners going to play the Seahawks that game, and I told my husband that the Seahawks are going to beat the 49ers, who everyone thought was untouchable that year. And I was like, look, Russell Wilson's going to get it done. He's got the 12th man behind him. My husband's like, no way. And ended up, I was right.
Yeah.
And so my husband posted to Reddit. I'm sure y'all are pretty familiar with it. And posted, my wife is getting better at picking NFL and college football than me. What do I do? And jokingly, people commented and were like, post your picks here, they'll go stale. And he started doing that, and I went on a 15-0 NFL run, and people were absolutely obsessed. I mean, I had a cult following. People every day were asking my husband, where's the wife? What's her pick? Give me the wife pick. And so that's when he kind of prompted me. He's like, look, I know you've been home with these kids for so long, but I think you should make a Twitter, start putting some content out there. You're good. You could do this. And I was like, I don't know. I've been at home with children. That's all I've spoken to really for the last 7 years. So it's like, I don't know whether I can do it. And so I started putting my content out there and slowly growing, my following. I started with a small offshore company, that, started, they found me when I had, probably 7,000 followers. And we're like, hey, probably less than that. Maybe even 3,000, but they're like, hey, could you do some work for us? So I started to kind of get comfortable. Well, not really comfortable because I'm still not comfortable hearing myself or seeing myself on video. But I started to get comfortable with videoing and, putting content out there. And they reached out. They were going to have me sign a full contract. And then that week, FanDuel reached out to me and also the Action Network. And so I had to kind of act fast and decide, what I wanted to do, and decided to go with FanDuel. And they have been great to me. They have an awesome sports book, and they're great to their customers. So that's kind of how I had, in a nutshell, how I started.
Love it. Love that story. And I mean, a testament to moms that are out there that are rocking it and killing it wherever we choose to jump in. I've got a 12-year-old sixth grader, Megan. So between baseball, basketball, and soccer, I mean, moms fit it in like we can, all the best. So, I mean, you kind of mentioned, and I want to jump into it in a little bit about where you've been now and the 15-0 run. But I'm also wanting to know, and this is for me just being totally vulnerable and transparent. I'm a beginner when it comes to sports betting. So what are the basics, not only for the women out there, because I think there's some guys out there that probably act like they know what they're doing,
absolutely.
But they don't have a clue. So break it down for us. Give us the basics of what you need to know if you're ready to put your first $100 down on a bet.
Okay. So first, I feel like bankroll management is key. You'll always want to gamble responsibly. So I want to start with that.
Absolutely.
Always gamble. If you do not have the money to gamble, don't do it. You can just sit back and watch, and you can gamble with your pride, if anything. So whenever you're betting, say, let's start with football. I'm sure y'all know quite a bit about football. You have a money line, which is just whoever wins. Mm-hmm. You have a spread bet, which is, say, the Kansas City was favored by, was it 3 in the Super Bowl? So they would have to win by 3 points in order for your spread bet to hit. Uh-huh. And then you have totals, which, if it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs and the total is 52, obviously, you can go over or under. You can look at previous history from Kansas City's, how much they've scored throughout their season, whether it's an average of 34 points a game and Tampa Bay is averaging 32 points a game. You know that average is over 52 points. So whenever you're looking at totals, you can that's more of your math, where you're going to really want to get in and kind of crunch some numbers there. But whenever you're doing that, make sure you're looking at weather, whether you're playing indoor or outdoors.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, well, I mean, if you're thinking about
ball security, passing yards.
Yeah, totals with it just being numbers. I mean, a strong wind is going to, probably deter a lot of catches and a lot of missed extra points, things of that nature. So weather is a humongous factor whenever you're looking at totals. You're definitely going to want to look at that, especially, if they're playing outside or versus playing in the Superdome. And usually with totals, it also goes along with crowd. And we haven't had the crowd, so that hasn't been a real factor this year. However, just as I mentioned, the Superdome is a super loud place. There's often times where teams have struggled to play there. So whether they go off sides more or whether they're not able just to get momentum going, that could affect totals there. So as I said, there's money line, there's spread, and there's total. If I were go back, I would just start with money line bets. Okay. And that's who you think is going to win. This is where it gets a little more confusing, but it's not hard to understand. So whenever you're placing a bet, you have something called juice. And so if you're wanting to place a $100 bet on the New Orleans Saints money line, that's generally going to be at minus 110, meaning that you're going to have to pay $110 to win $100. Oh. But if you were to pick, if the New Orleans Saints were playing the Falcons and the Falcons were +3, so that means they could lose by 3 points and cover the spread. Are y'all following me, or have I lost?
Yes.
You can actually take the Falcons money line there, which would be something around plus, I don't know, 275, and that's where you can put $100 down to win the $275 and your $100 back, of course. So there's definitely important factors as far as whether you're betting high juice, which is, minus 175. Because look, you can pick, if the New Orleans Saints are favored by 7 and you just want them to win, so it's going to be more expensive for you every time that line goes up. So if it's 7 and it goes to 7.5, you're going to have to pay more juice on that. If it goes to 8, you're going to have to pay more juice on that. So you're putting out more money to win less, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it does. And it makes sense, right?
Yeah. And it's okay. So I feel like if I had a little pen and paper, it would be easier for me to draw this out.
We could do this in post editing too. So draw it out for us. We'll do it.
So I started out with just money lines and spreads. I still don't do a lot of totals. I do totals in baseball more so than in football or basketball. But yeah, that's where, the spread is, if the New Orleans Saints are favored by 5, you think they're going to win by 10, then you can take that spread bet and it would just be 110. So you'd be paying $110 to win 100. Or if the other side is whether they're playing, as I said, the Falcons, people keep betting the Falcons. That Saints number, if it was minus 5, is going to go down the more people bet on the Falcons. So you can actually get a better line, which is called CLV, closing line value, with watching the numbers. I know it sounds kind of boring and it's not fun at all, but it really is a lot of fun, especially if you win your first bet.
Yeah.
There's parlays too. I don't like to talk a lot about those, but those are fun for people that are new to betting because as soon as you hit your first parlay, you're generally hooked, and that's usually if you can put $2 down to win, I don't know, 75 if you want to take the New Orleans Saints minus their New Orleans Saints spread, the Falcons spread, the Bucks spread, and the Cowboys spread, and if all of those hit, which most of the time is really crazy, because it doesn't happen, that your $2 will turn into 70.
Real quick. So wait, would a parlay be, so I saw the story about the guy who ended up streaking during the Super Bowl and he bet on himself, I guess, that somebody would streak during the Super Bowl. Was that an example of a parlay?
That is not an example of a parlay.
Okay.
That is of a prop bet, and prop bets are super fun. For the Super Bowl, you could have bet on Gatorade color.
Oh yes,
I saw all that.
And yeah, with the streaking guy there, I mean, if you I guess have enough grit,
nice
out
drop
there. Yeah, if you have enough of that to put yourself out there, I mean, you could have talked to, I don't know, if you have 500 friends that you can convince to all put, $100 down on it was probably a plus, I don't know, I would say, I'm more because it was a COVID year, maybe plus 5,000 for streaking, I would assume. I don't know, I'd have to look at it. But that's literally putting $1 down to win 5,000.
Wow.
So if he got his 500 friends, they all put $100 in the pot, and they all put this humongous bet on if this guy is going to streak. I mean, he pretty much guaranteed himself free money and rigged the system. So yeah. I don't know, how that exactly works. I would not have done that.
No,
I
don't think
nearly enough.
Nope. Not enough money in the world to make that happen.
No.
But I mean, he shot his shot. As they say, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't make. But, well, that's awesome. That's good to know the difference between a prop bet now and a parlay. And Megan, like we said, yesterday was Selection Sunday for NCAA and March Madness. Now, how much do you get into March Madness brackets? And I mean, do you have any advice for our listeners out there about if they're filling out a bracket, trying to get ready for March Madness to kick off? Any advice for how they should kind of approach it this year?
I love March Madness.
Yeah.
So before I even really started sports betting, and I used to play fantasy football a lot and do the bracket challenges with my husband's people at work. So 3 years ago, I actually picked the final, which was Villanova, Michigan, with Villanova winning. So I won that year. The next year, I picked Virginia to win. And that happened. So I ended up getting kicked out of my husband's work league.
I love that.
And, so last year, obviously, we didn't have a winner. We stopped mid-tournament, which was absolutely bonkers. I didn't think I'd ever see that in my lifetime. But with this year, I feel like there is nothing that is impossible. That clip from the beginning of the show was me talking about the Illini. I took them as my future to win the tournament at 16-1. So people obviously are loving the Gonzagas and the Baylor and the Michigan. But this is a year I feel like, if any, is definitely for a Cinderella story team. I feel like people tend to look at numbers a little too much and forget about that there's actual people playing the game. I feel like, for example, today I took Appalachian State over Georgia State, and Appalachian State has played back-to-back days. They won an OT yesterday. Everyone's thinking they're going to be absolutely tired. I took them +7, which means they can lose by 7. So that's a spread bet. And my whole thing is that I don't know about y'all, but I don't know if you're still in college. I think you said she was still in college.
Abby.
But as far as like being a young kid with motivation, or a young person, not kid. These are people way bigger than me. But as far as motivation factors, I mean, that's an opportunity that they might not ever get in their life. And I just don't believe in this whole, they're going to be way too tired thing. No. Because, at that age, I mean, come on. Like, I mean, I get it if you're LeBron James and you play back to back and then have to go play the finals. You're almost, 40 years old, you're exhausted. But at 19, 18, whatever, at 22, I don't know how old everyone gets. But regardless, I just think that with March Madness is one, obviously it's called madness for a reason, because literally anything could happen. You could get the wrong matchup, or you have teams coming out thinking that they're just 1,000 times better than others, and they end up, getting their feelings hurt and having to go home because they went out there with just way too much confidence, and it gets shattered. So in filling out a bracket, I would say that, keep your team in mind that you like, but also don't be afraid to fill out like 2 or 3 brackets. There you can go on ESPN and this would be a great introduction for people who have never really done any type of sports betting, because it's good for pride. So you can fill out 2, 3, you and your boyfriend, or you and your husband, or you and your friends, whatever. Y'all fill them out, put them on the fridge, get your highlighters, and do it for pride. It's so much fun to be able to watch something that you've kind of constructed yourself actually weirdly come to life. I was so addicted to March Madness the last 3 years, just because I have been right twice. So I feel like I could do it again. I feel like I'm just getting this third eye whenever I see my bracket. But yeah, so I feel like that's, whenever you're looking at your bracket, don't just go and put, just because you see that one team is a 2 seed and the other one's not, ranked. Don't think that team is just going to absolutely blow through them. Really, take some chances. Don't just go and pick all favorites. Is essentially what I'm saying.
Got it. Now, and I've heard a ton about the 12 versus 5 matchup that happens early in March Madness. Is there as you think about who could be a 12 or 5 seed that, could potentially be an upset for a 12 seed? Is there anyone that comes to mind that we should watch out for? I mean, I'm personally asking because I want to win the Jordy Collada Show bracket challenge this year. So I'm trying to get some tips before I fill out my bracket. Any thoughts?
I think if we're going to keep going on the grit factor, I am loving Georgia Tech. I think they're +plus 20,000 to win the entire dance, which means $1.
Wait a minute. Where's that FanDuel website?
I think that they win the entire thing. No, but I think that that's one team that can beat some of those big, ranked teams that, they might come out too confident. And Georgia Tech is gritty, and they grind, and they are the epitome of hustle right now in the tournament, in my opinion. So I feel like Georgia Tech is definitely a Cinderella to watch out for. But again, I did say that Illinois is my favorite. I think they are now the 4th favorite to win, but I took them when they were the 16th, 17th, 18th favorite.
Well, hey, we like a good underdog story and somebody that's going to fight through it and grind their way through the tournament. And speaking of grit, Megan, one of the things that we are looking to build as a part of this GritIron community is inspiration and motivation, not only for women, but for men as well. And so one of the questions that we're asking every guest, because everybody at least has one thing in common, and that is grit, is, you know, who are some folks that maybe you admire or some women that you admire that you see that have grit, that are persevering and that are passionate about what they're out there doing in the world today?
Well, I mean, obviously, you two wonderful women. I think that I should start there. So I like that answer. Y'all are great, and I think what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. As I said, highlighting women on and off the field is something that I feel like definitely needs more attention. Considering that, you know, we don't get looked at as much on field unless we do have a microphone on our hand in our hands or whatever. Another one that comes to mind that I think about whenever I'm thinking about grit, and someone that I look up to, Simone Biles is one. I think that she's absolutely phenomenal. She stands her ground. She is like the most decorated medalist in history. I think what she can do with her body and just her overall, the way she carries herself is absolutely phenomenal. Another one that comes to mind, especially over the last year, is Vanessa Bryant.
Yes.
Obviously, she's not a sports, like an athlete, but she's, you know, obviously in sports, being the wife of Kobe Bryant and the mother of Gigi, and, you know, mother of all the rest of the babies. But just how much she has persevered. You know, anytime that I'm having a tough day and I'm, you know, down on myself for not being able to, you know, whether it was, I forgot last week that it was Storybook Character Day, and I was really hard on myself, and I was like, you know what, I'm so lucky that I have my husband here and that I have my children here, and, you know, I think about her and how she's able to handle everything, and I think that she really is a true definition of grit. And I think the last one, I think if anyone comes to mind, Erica Nardini. She's the CEO of Barstool Sports.
Yeah.
I think that being able to be a woman, especially running that particular company, I think has to be extremely difficult. I think that her skin must be like feet tough. Like, I have no idea how she's able to do what she does and keep her composure and be so cool. So yeah, those are three that just like off the top of my head, you know, come to mind whenever I think of grit. And then, of course, you two ladies.
Well, thank you for that. We appreciate it. And I mean, absolutely three amazing women that you highlighted. Yes. Mamba mentality is what we look to bring to the GritIron Show each and every week, and highlighting women like you, Megan, who are breaking the glass ceilings everywhere. I mean, girl, be careful where you're walking because there's glass everywhere for what you're doing in sports betting. And we can't thank you enough again for saying yes and joining us on the GritIron Show and teaching us a little bit more about sports betting. I mean, we look forward to having you back on again, probably as we get maybe set up for football this fall. Would be great for us to kind of dive into some more after we get through March Madness and get ready for the start of the football season. So from us here at the GritIron Show, thank you so much, Megan. Makin Money. You can find her on Instagram, on Twitter, and everywhere else. And FanDuel, Megan Makin Money, thanks for joining us on the GritIron Show today. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all so much for having me, and I'm so sorry if I confuse anybody with how I sports think. If I was able to literally draw out a diagram, it would be much better. As I said, I am a visual learner, and as far as me, you know, telling everyone, just visual as well.
No worries at all. We'll probably add like a little post editing so we can maybe draw some of what you talked about out for folks, but they can follow you on Instagram and Twitter as well for more information on sports betting and all the same. Thanks, Megan, so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank y'all for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Have a good one.